Something I've done for years since I was a kid fairly well was write down my goals and aspirations. I recall from back when I was in high school, I would actually write out and schedule my days minute to minute, organizing my time according to the tasks I knew I needed to get done in order to achieve a larger goal. Now, while I rarely had a perfect day according to this self-created schedule, it kept me on track. And the way I saw it, 60% success was better than 0%. While over the years the system worked well to get me to achieve my immediate goals, it started to let me down a bit as I got older. At first, I thought it was a reflection of me. A sort of breakdown in my own discipline or abilities. I instantly started doubting myself and wondering if I was lesser or worse than the same old version of me who knew how to succeed. But after years of reflecting on how I've changed through the years and how my life has changed, I finally realized around this year why it was I was struggling to set goals and how to come up with a better system. And I thought it would be kind of cool if I shared it with you guys. See, the thing I didn't realize for years was that the rules of the game I was playing had changed. Back in high school, the rules of the game were pretty simple. You do your homework, you show up, you listen to what you're told, and you do it. You pick up a couple extracurriculars, and you do well. The expectations were really clear and they were set out for you. But then, university hit. And very quickly I learned a couple things. First thing, I was in charge of my own time. And what I started realizing going to school was that doing well in school no longer paid the same dividends it used to in high school. But maybe most importantly was when I had my first internship. And I realized instantly that the things I was learning in school were not reflective of the things that I was doing or learning in the workplace. And I didn't really see the overlap. And then it kind of hit me. The same things that I used to be rewarded for when I was a kid, I was almost punished for when I started working. Keeping your head down, following the rules, playing by the book, all of a sudden these weren't as admirable at work, no matter what they told me. And how this all comes back to goal setting is the fact that all of a sudden the way I used to set my goals, in where I would align my goals, my personal goals, with the goals of the institution, I just take the rules that they had and follow those, all of a sudden I didn't have that framework. And so I was in this place where after all these years, all of a sudden, I had no idea how to set goals. And that's when I really started thinking. Clearly, the old rulebook I was using to set goals, it wasn't going to make sense. So I started approaching it really systematically. And over the past couple years, I came up with a step-by-step kind of system to set up my own goals, and that have led me to, personally, what I feel is a lot more success in this newer phase of my life. So I want to share those rules with you guys. Step 1. Set up your values. I think this is like the most cliche thing that everyone says, but this was really hard. And to be honest, it took me the better part of 4 years. And the reason for that was I'm entering into a phase of my life now where school is temporary all of a sudden. These institutions I go to or I belong to are no longer going to be there for the rest of my life. And that's different from when you're 12 or 13 years old. Then you can't really see past these institutions. When you're 12, you know you're going to be in school for the next 6 years, and then I knew I was going to be in school for at least another 4. So for the next decade of my life, I didn't really have to think about anything. But now, as I started moving into a phase of my life where it was going to go away, I had to ask myself what actually mattered to me. So an example was, the goal I set really early on was, I want to have a 90% average. Then I had to stop and be like, yo, why? Why did I want a 90% average? Was it because it mattered to me, or was it to impress someone else? I had to start doing the pros and cons. I had to say, the effort it's going to take me to get a 90% average, is that worth letting go of the other things I care about or that are important to me? Do I want to be unidimensional? Now, don't get me wrong. People can achieve that, but I knew for myself the amount of effort and time it was going to take. And as I started going in this loop of questioning, I started just getting kind of confused. So I came up with a technique where I started writing to myself. And what I wrote was just questions. I didn't look for answers, but I wrote out questions. And in those questions, I actually often found the answers. Because I asked of myself to write questions about what mattered to me, you know. And when I started writing those questions, I started reading them and being like, whoa, the sort of things I'm asking about are, you know, hey, are you creating art that inspires you? And I was like, if that's a goal, how does that fall into my 90% average goal? And I think at the end of the day, the reason finding values is so difficult and why it's taken me 4 years is that it's a process of constant refinement. Every time you think you have an answer, a new year hits, something happens in your life and you have to start questioning it. But what you realize is if it's a core value, if it's really there to stick, it starts transcending situations. And so once I set up my core values, it became a lot easier for me to know as Siddharth, what my goals actually were moving forward in my life. So step 2 for me was finding my baskets. If I know the person I want to be, and that's the whole point of finding out my values, once I know the person I want to be, and I have all this energy I want to put towards it, it becomes important for me to focus my mind on specific tasks and areas of my life to grow. And I know I'm happiest when I'm growing as a multifaceted person, so that I don't just develop in a single area and kind of forget everything else about my life. So I developed baskets. And the idea of a basket is just multiple goals or ideas that are joined together by a single theme. So, for example, I have 5 areas in my life that are most important to me. Number 1, art. That's my first basket. And in art, this includes all of my artistic ventures and skills that I want to develop and grow in myself. So painting, editing, content creation, and most importantly for me, acting. I have goals that are set up just for that side of my life. The second basket in my life is financial. I learned pretty recently, to be honest, how important it is to be financially literate and have a plan. And because of that, I've started to develop goals around the idea of taking care of my personal finances as I'm growing older. And the reason for that is that in order for me to pursue the things that I'm interested in, I need to be financially stable enough or have enough of a financial plan to go get those things and feel free to take those risks. And that kind of seeps into my third basket, which is business. I have business goals that are associated with the fact that I want to be entrepreneurial in my life for 2 reasons. A, I want to set up alternative sources of income, different income streams that allow me to continue to generate wealth so that, again, I can continue to take risks, but also because I want to provide value to people. And I feel like I have skills and talents that I can provide value to people outside of just getting a specific job or going to a specific school. My fourth basket in my life is engineering. And the reason for that is that engineering is my trade. It's what I actually went to school for, and it's what right now pays the bills for me. And the thing is, I actually care about engineering. I enjoy it. So I want to continue to grow myself in this skill set to be both marketable, but also so that I can continue to grow and be of service and be of value to people, right? I don't think those 2 things are mutually exclusive. And then there's the 5th basket in my life. That for me is my character, my self-care goals. This basket's really important to me because it's most closely tied to those core values I figured out earlier. But the reason I need to have them as their own basket is because it becomes really easy, I realized, to forgive myself for not being something if I never set a goal for it. So by that what I mean is it's really easy to say family is a core value. But then what does that look like day to day? So I have to set up a basket for myself with goals and checkpoints that can show me and remind me that it's important for me to grow in that field. And then comes step 3, setting up a timeline. Now, this for me is by far my favorite part. And the reason for that is this is where I get to actually start scaring myself and setting goals that I have no idea how I'm going to achieve, and then working backwards to figure out an actionable way to actually get there. Now, for me, I use a whiteboard to do this. I'll explain why later, but this part, really important. Okay, so I start by setting up 5-year goals. Now, the reason for that is I want to start at the largest timescale possible. And the idea is that 5 years from now, what is the ultimate expression of each one of my baskets? So the key here is I only set 1 goal per basket. And instead of just writing 5 years later, I like writing the year 2026. because it scares the hell out of me, first of all, and second of all, it actualizes it. It makes it real. So for me, I have a basket for business, right? The question I ask myself is 5 years down the road, what is the ultimate expression of a perfect world? And so maybe for me, that is, I want to have an independent company that is generating X amount of profit each year. Now, I have 5 years down the road, 2026, when I look back, I have a quantifiable goal. And that's really important. The goals I set have to inspire me, but I also have to know categorically whether I reach them or not. Because if I do something in the middle, I'm just cheating myself. And it might feel good today, but 5 years later, I know I'm not going to have been where I could have been. Okay, so now that I have these 5-year goals, and only one per basket, I then go to a single year goal. So now, that means by the end of 2021, so January 2022, what are my goals? And I stick to the same rule of only one goal per basket. And the reason I do that is because now I have this idea that 5 years down the road, I have a goal. What do I have to have achieved by the end of this year to be on the right road to getting there? What I really like about this idea is that it lets me all of a sudden take a step back and think, okay, what is the minimum, what is the smallest unit I need to achieve? And so this idea of I want an independent business generating X amount of revenue 5 years from now might now mean by the end of 2021, I want to have sold one thing. And it doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter who I do it with, it doesn't matter how I do it, but now I have an actionable thing that by the end of this year, I need to have sold something. And I know, and this is the beauty of this system to me, is that I know that just by doing that, I'm on track to get where I want 5 years from now. Now, I'm sure you see where this is going, but the next step now is I set up a 1 month goal. Now, at this point, what starts happening is my goals start fracturing from a single statement or a single goal into multiple. And the reason for that is that now that my time scales have changed and they've shortened, I'm afforded the luxury of setting medium and short-term goals. So sticking with the same example, right? 5 years, I want a business that generates X amount of profit. 1 year down the road, I want to have sold one thing, minimum. That means that by the end of this month, maybe I need to A, have taken a business course or taken some sort of course on learning how to sell things. That's one thing I need to do. Maybe another thing I need to do is I need to start researching industries or fields or things that I believe are interesting or that I have a skill in. And maybe a third thing I need to do is I need to learn about how to set up a passive income stream. Okay? These are 3 goals, but they're all aimed towards the same idea. And by the end of February, if I can hit these 3 things within this month, I know that I'm going in the right direction. And then, you already know where this is going. Next goal I set, weekly goal. At the end of this week, where do I need to be? And then, once you have your weekly goals, I set up my daily goals. And the cool thing is, by the time I get to the daily level, it's not really like I'm setting up my goals, so much as now I know that my schedule, the tasks I have to do today, are directly populated and directly related to where I want to be 5 years from now. And that way, when I'm working through my day, I don't have to ask myself, am I wasting time? Am I doing enough? I know I'm doing enough because I've already planned it. And then comes step 4. And I think step 4 is actually the most important step of all of them. And step 4 is reviewing my goals. This is by far the newest part of my process, and I would say the most important part. See, in the past what I'd do is I'd get really inspired one day and I'd write out all these goals. I'd just have such clarity about what I want out of life. And I'd write them down in some notebook, and then I'd close it. And it'd be gone. And the only time I ever revisited those goals is when I just happened to find the notebook and I went through it on a whim. And the thing was that I'd read it, and sometimes I reached the goals, most times I didn't, but it didn't really matter. Because those goals were lost the minute I put the pen down. Having goals is good, writing them is better, reviewing them is the best. And that is why I use a whiteboard. See, because the thing is, with this whiteboard, when I write down my 5-year, 1-year, monthly, weekly, and daily goals, what ends up happening is that every time I have to go back every week and every day to rewrite these goals and figure out where I'm going, I necessarily end up having to review my yearly and monthly goals. And what I do is I put this in the room that I work. So no matter what's going on, I always catch a glimpse of it. And I think the important thing about reviewing goals is that it sets up these checkpoints for yourself to see, am I on track? And if you are, you feel great. And if you're not, though it does feel kind of crappy, it lets you reorient. And I think that's the most important thing, because the truth is you're not going to, at least I'm not going to achieve every one of my goals as I set them out. It's the same idea young Siddharth had when he wrote down his days minute to minute. 60% is better than nothing. And I like to think this system is better than 60%. It's around like 80%. I think undoubtedly the most important thing I've learned about myself is that oftentimes I wouldn't set goals, not because I didn't have them, but because I was scared that if I quantified what success meant, I also inadvertently was quantifying what failure meant to me. And knowing that you're failing is the worst feeling ever, especially when you know you're failing yourself. But the truth is, I think it's better to know that I'm failing myself than to just be walking directionless. And it took me the better part, like I said, of 4 years to start developing this system and figuring out where I wanted to go. And the best part of it is, it's somewhere that I want to go. It's Siddharth. And I hope that as I walk down this path, I learn new things, I become a new person, I grow. But every day, I'm going towards something that's important to me. Not what's important to my family, not what's important to my friends, not what's important to social media. It's more to me. I think that's pretty cool.